Brittany Prather, a recruiter from Minneapolis for a consulting firm there. She's going to be talking about, or her talk is going to be exposing the problem of maintaining diverse talent in corporate ranks.
All right, so hello everyone, I'm Brittany Prather, I'm out of Minneapolis, so thank you so much for allowing me to share this space with you. We'll just be touching on how we as individuals in the workplace can play a role in economic and justice and really correcting that revolving door of diverse talent, specifically Black talent in this space. And so we really want to talk about, there's two issues at hand, and I won't hammer home these issues a ton because I think we're all here because we want to be the solution. But to set this stage, there are simply just not enough Black leaders. We're not curating enough Black leaders in the United States. In 2019, only 3.2% of leadership and executive level roles were Black. And so it's really not helping to promote and create economic justice and economic development in the Black community. And it's just really kind of perpetuating that never-ending cycle that we're facing. And then we're facing that development issue alongside the issue that Black professionals are still experiencing bias, prejudice, microaggressions, and racism in their workplaces. And so therefore just really not feeling valued and not staying as we've seen. So as if we want to create that transformation and the change that we want to see, I just want to empower everyone to kind of take the reins, and we all have a role to play in that. So what does racial justice within our corporations look like? So often I think we look towards like leadership to tell us what to do. We look for our D&I offices to set the strategy. We look for HR to recruit more Black people in our corporations. And then we look for our training teams to do all the internal work and just kind of lead us along the path. And these are really short-term solutions. And again, just empowering each individual. We all play a part in moving this needle. We know that there are so many kind of just return on investments for having diverse corporations and diverse workforces. And so in order to do that, we all need to take the reins. These days, millennials and people behind us are going to continue to hold organizations accountable. We want to see board representation and executive leadership. And we want to see your social media, where your dollars are going. And I think people will be continue to be held accountable that the walk you're doing is alongside kind of the top. So how do we do that? Each as individuals, no matter what your vocation is or your position or level in your organization. And just kind of set that groundwork, setting the stage to understand that equality and equity are two different things. I love this quote from Paula Dressel from Race Matters Institute. And the route to achieving equity will not be accomplished through treating everyone equally. It will be achieved by treating everyone justly according to their circumstances. So just having this simple foundation that sometimes, as illustrated in this picture, that we might need to give our neighbor that second box, that third box, so that they can reach an equal amount, an equal level. We're not all starting on the equal playing field. So just to kind of get that groundwork started. And I really love what Joy and Marie have already talked about. This will also just kind of pile on to what they've all said and the amazing work that they're doing. And so kind of just to get into the solution, as 1 Peter 4:10 states, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And we are all in our workplaces using our God-given gifts and talents. And I just wanted to challenge us to take us a step further and faithfully steward the people that are within our corporations and our organizations and walk alongside them. So we'll go through these 5 solutions that I've kind of built out here. The first one I have is starting early. So Joy really touched on the youth, and I think it's a huge pipeline that we're often missing. We can start to be stewards to students in high school. There's so many different ways to do this, and especially if you're in a corporation or a workplace, through company visits. And once we can do that safely, just inviting students to come visit your company through job shadowing or going to high schools. I love the example that Joy had provided about the high school in California and partnering with high schools that you might not think of to really encourage students to think outside the box or to hear about positions that they may not have heard of before. So we must reach them early. If students don't know about all the opportunities out there and how to attain them, then we're already missing that executive level leadership talent or missing them before they even have a chance to get into the workforce and even have a chance to go beyond high school. And so we need to continue to break down those barriers and help increase access. I listed a few organizations that I've worked with and found that are really more geared toward the economic and vocational training and advancing students, underprivileged and underrepresented minority students. So all of these opportunities, there's like e-mentoring opportunities. You could be a virtual mentor. And we do know that students who have mentors are proven to be more successful. They have a little bit more support. They feel that they have accountability. And so just even being a mentor in a high school student's life can go a long way. So just starting there, I think we so often kind of miss that talent pipeline, and we focus so much on college students and beyond, and it starts in high school. So moving on into hiring, I won't touch on this too much. I think we all, immediately go to hiring to fix this issue, and it is an HR issue, but it goes beyond that. And so we need to start with diversifying talent sources, and I think this is where the place where we can get most stuck. We've all heard that saying that birds of a feather flock together, and so it's our inherent bias that we hire people that look like us. And so we really need to think about how we do that differently. So we need to meet candidates where they are. So that's really creating genuine relationships with diversity organizations and partnerships, maybe going to diversity career fairs. It's seeking out the talent rather than just kind of waiting for the talent to come to you. And also, it's not just stopping at, oh, we've posted this position and this is just what we've got. It's really being intentional and seeking out the diverse talent that you need to create the change in the workplace. And then moving into that, meeting candidates where they are, kind of going back into that equality versus equity, and us not all starting from the same place, just trying to understand. I think we have to be very flexible. We are very flexible when it comes to business needs, but being more flexible when it comes to candidate needs as well. Understanding that oftentimes people are being placed up against their non-minority peers, and it might not be a very fair or accurate representation. So taking certain things into consideration, they might not have access to print their resume. They might not have access to a car to get to the job. So it's really just meeting candidates where they are. And that kind of goes into the next point of losing that one-size-fits-all mindset. We often talk about the right fit for the job, and I put that in quotations because that word fit can get us into a very tricky cycle. And so it's not about just everyone kind of fitting into your organization, but how can we be flexible and adaptable and welcome that diversity in our organization. And the next thing is retention, and this is kind of where that revolving door comes into play. We focus a lot about hiring and bringing in talent, but I really feel strongly, especially being in the recruiting and talent acquisition space, that we can do a lot of work bringing in those diverse talent, but if they do not feel welcome, if they do not feel included, if they do not feel heard, listened to, developed, they won't stay. And Black employees are leaving their corporations at a higher rate than their minority counterparts, and we need to fix that. So that goes beyond just having like a diversity inclusion organization or diversity inclusion department. It's really embedding that inclusive culture into each one of us. And, I think it's so easy to just kind of hang out with the people you say hi to the people but maybe one day if there was someone that you don't know that looked different than you, I'm really thinking about how we can be truly the hands and feet of Jesus that even Marie had talked about earlier. How can we be the hands and feet of Jesus to our coworkers, to a new employee that we've never seen before? I think the next piece is encouraging authenticity. This is huge. We've heard millions of stories where people at the workplace feel like they cannot bring their whole selves to work, and especially Black employees, they aren't able to wear natural hair or dreadlocks or scarves or whatever that may be, and it's not fair to ask Black employees or people of color to leave a personal part of their themselves and then kind of separate that from the workplace. So encouraging that authenticity and allowing people to be themselves in the workforce is huge. And then doing the work, we have so many resources at our fingertips, and just it's ongoing, continuing to do the work of the articles and the podcasts and the books, and then continuing on with ongoing and measurable efforts. And then looking at where our dollars are going. So if you are working in an organization, you should be trying to hold your leadership accountable wondering where they're putting their money to, and especially when it is facilitating towards hiring and retaining people of color. And that will take us to development. I'll touch on. And again, there is that, ROI and that business case for having a diverse workforce. But, when it comes to being a Christ follower, it is more of a moral case. So it's not just a business case. We need to do the right thing. And that goes for developing. So developing our leadership training, it's really hard when you're continuously bringing in new employees and diverse employees, and they often are starting at that entry level space. And they never move past that. They never move past the manager role. So if you feel like maybe an employee might not be quite ready for that next level, it's really thinking about what we can do to help get them to that next level, rather than just hiring somebody outside into that higher level role. So developing that leadership training from within, and really getting those people of color out of that entry level role that we so often see, and really helping them to continue to move along and get that experience. Championing promotions. This one is huge. I really believe that we all need to be promoting. It's that simple. We can never get to closing that wealth gap that we need to see without promoting our Black employees and our people of color. And then Black employees, we need sponsorship. Diverse employees, they need sponsorship. So it goes a step further than just mentorship. So finding somebody who genuinely cares for their development, willing to go to bat for them when they're not in the room, recommending them for promotions, stretch assignments, leadership roles, high visibility projects, being careful of that fine line of a token, but really it's really more about creating opportunities. And so those are some tangible development that we really need to kind of implement in order to retain our talent. And lastly, but not least, it just goes down to each one of us, and I'll just leave some action items here. Starting that conversation. So you might not be in a people leader role, you might not be in leadership, but if you are, really looking and measuring your current diversity efforts, and then continuing to set strategic and measurable goals and initiatives. And not only that, but following through. I think this is more than just a trend. This is more than just kind of a one-time thing. We don't want to find ourselves in the same space that 3.2% of Black leaders 5 years from now. So continuing to measure those goals. And if you're not in a people leader role, bringing it to your manager, telling them you want to hold this company accountable, you want to hold your organization to a higher standard. And these are maybe some of the ideas that you have. And the next one is getting involved. So maybe it is becoming a mentor to those youth, offering to do a job shadow, offering to go into different high schools that you may have typically not reached before, offering to become someone's sponsor, and then checking in. That's just something so simple that I think we fail to do sometimes with people that are maybe outside of our normal social or work sphere. But it is just as simple, how are you doing today? And checking our bias. We hear a lot about inherent biases, and it is true. We need to continue to do that internal work, listening to your fellow Black employees, doing that internal work, and then repeat as needed. So it's not just a one-time thing. We will have to continue to do it, and we will have grace. We fall and we get back up, and we keep on going. And the last thing I would say is using your privilege for good. So being more than just that ally that we often talk about, but becoming a true advocate. So if you see that you're at a decision-making table, or you're on a board and you see that the board does not have accurate representation, or there's not a person of color making decisions, really speaking up about that, and then also potentially giving someone else the seat. So it's not just about amplifying Black voices, it's sometimes making yourself a little bit more quiet, so that a Black voice can be louder. So just using your privilege and taking it a step further in action. The time is now, and I love this quote from John Lewis. We may not have chosen the time has chosen us, and it's so true. There's so much work to be done and so much transformation that we as individuals can take. And just thank you guys so much for the time, and appreciate it. Thank you.
I love how you pursued the question in such a procedural and process-based set of questions. You really analyzed different parts of the hiring, all the way down to the education, all the way up to hiring and leadership and things you can do individually. So thank you for that perspective, and that I've just learned so much about the hiring process. I work in nonprofit, so it's a little different in a ministry nonprofit. I have two questions for you from different folk from the Typeform. So the first one I will ask is, Brittany, do you have any thoughts on blind resume reviews and whether they're effective in reducing implicit bias in hiring?
Yes, I love that. There's been a lot of research done on resume reviews and just a simple name and how that can really deter and really affect a hiring decision. So yes, I definitely agree and encourage blind resume reviews. We've done that in a few companies I've worked at in the past, and I think it encourages people, it's implicit bias. They might not even know they're doing it. And so that can really be a good way to go about that.
The second question that we got is, fit and culture are common qualifiers used in hiring and even in promotion. What specific tips do you have for managers to ensure that fit and culture don't become code for being exclusive?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think our managers do need to be trained and to be given the tools to think outside the box. If you've done something one way for so long, that's probably the way they're going to continue to do it, even if you're not trying. And so I think that we have to push ourselves, hold each other accountable, and to think about, what does fit really mean? Is this person qualified to do the job or not? Rather than the fit. And so I think even taking that off interview forms, removing that from, we have behavioral type of questions to get a feel for, a candidate's experience. But I think that taking the culture piece out of it and the fit piece out of it, it's not necessarily a good indicator of if someone can do the job or not.
Awesome. I have a question before we have some extra time. So I have a question that I'd like to ask, which is that one of the challenges of being a minority in different spaces that are predominantly white is the question of assimilation, assimilating to norms, leadership styles, even like in some spaces, dress code, like there's a lot of different norms that you're kind of expected to meet. So my question is, in the question of leadership, as we promote more Black leaders, what does it look like for teams, both a manager and their team, and teams of executive decision makers to accommodate or make space for different leadership styles so that Black leaders aren't just assimilating to whatever is normal in those spaces?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't even know if I have the answer for that. But it does start with leadership and kind of work our way down. And that means getting away from our typical stereotypes of, if someone's speaking more loudly, that means they're angry. Or if someone's assertive, if a woman's assertive, that means she's just a mean person. And so it is really thinking outside of the box. And leaders need to get trained too. I think our more senior leaders have probably been in corporations a lot longer. And so again, they've seen kind of the way that it's been going. But I think as more millennials and the Gen X have kind of filter in that corporation, it will start to even out a bit. And we will kind of have to stretch ourselves a little bit more to think a little bit differently. And there won't be as much assimilation because of just the younger generation.
Thank you so much for fielding this. Some of those questions are tough. They're great. So thank you for your answers. Please check out the chats. There's some great comments for you in the chats. Just thoughts on your different points that you made. And again, folk in the audience, we'll connect you. Please give us your email if you have any questions, and we'll send them Brittany's way.